move to item 9, which is the Duvauchelle's wastewater options report. The recommendation is that the staff would recommend 2 options to go out for consultation, and we'll be approving that today, all going well. So I'd like to firstly just actually highlight to members that this has been a long piece of work, long time in motion. It's not something that's just arrived. The staff have worked very, very closely with the community and the community working group on this, and I'm sure that they will raise that in their presentations. There's 2 presentations today, one from Mike Burke and one from Michelle. So without further ado, I'll hand over to staff to kick away. Thank you. I think it's Mike first, is it? Yep, Mike.
Good morning. Just to run through the options that we have investigated, we've come down to the 2 that we're recommending. Both involve irrigation to the golf course, and one involves real reuse of the wastewater for irrigating the golf course when the golf course needs irrigation. And the second option that we went through with you at the briefing was to drip irrigate to trees and planted margins on the golf course and some additional land off the golf course. So the recommendation is that we go forward with those 2 options to public consultation. There's been a lot of community input to this, particularly from the golf club, the pony club, the A&P Association out there, and of course Anuku Runanga through all of this. So there seems to be very good community support for both options, going to the golf course and leaving the golf course as 18 holes. We did look hard at 12-hole options that didn't in the end find favour with the golf club, but the community seems to be very well on board with the reuse option onto the golf course as well. So it's really a case of, does the council agree with the options we're recommending for consultation? This table shows the options, the 2 green options that we're recommending. There are 5 other orange options there that could be added as well. We don't necessarily see the need or the desirability of those to be added in, and there's 4 options there that we wouldn't recommend for going to public consultation. We think that the best option would be to go forward with 2 of them. The trade-off with one is more expensive with the reuse of the wastewater. The cheaper option is to drip irrigate to trees. So there's a trade-off there between the reuse and the drip irrigation, which is the second one. These are the other options that we've worked through, and this one is the drip irrigation to trees on the golf course, leaving the course pretty much as it is. Some drainage improvements necessary for this, and also to add some additional land to the irrigation near the golf course, some additional private land. And consultation and discussion with that landowner in a good space, and he's quite keen to have native trees planted on part of his property and for us to irrigate onto that land. This is the one of the options that we looked at was the 12-hole option on the golf course. In the end, the golf club have reverted back to wanting to keep the 18-hole option. It's quite a bit more expensive as well. So not fully recommended. B1, B3 is the option that we would put to council as a possibility, but we're not recommending that this be go forward for public consultation.
But B1, you mean you're not putting forward for public consultation?
That's correct. Yeah. So it's A4 and B3 are the two we're recommending. Yeah.
Yep.
I know councillors expressed some concern about the time frames for this, but even with the two options going forward, I think we can manage this quite quickly to have it resolved prior to the end of the current council term. So this is the indicative timeline we're looking at. We could be close to finishing the public consultation by the end of May. If hearing is necessary, that could happen in as early as June, possibly. So we could be well through it before the end of the council term.
Thank you, Mike. Look, I'll just pause it there. I want to table two items. One is a letter we received from the chair of Onuku Marae, that's Rick Tainui. I'd like to table that. And also I'd like to table the Duvauchelle's Wastewater Strategic Approach memo. That should also be attached to the agenda. So please note that. Now I'll open it up for questions. If I can get the screen reduced, as I can't see anybody on here at the moment. Please, that's better, thank you. Right. Any questions for Mike? Does not appear to be any questions. Oh, Leanne.
Sorry, I was struggling to find my hand. Just two questions, just to run me through, I guess in this forum, the benefits of reuse versus drip irrigation, because I presume that the golf course will still require irrigation, and I think there's a stream that they use for that purpose. But from a conservation point of view, you think reuse has got a better ring to it. So can you just work through those two things? And the other one was that both A4 and B3, both of them allow the Duvauchelle AMP show to continue to be held in its present location. I know that this is of great interest, having attended many of the Duvauchelle AMP shows. I'm aware of the public interest in that matter, so I'd like that stated for the record as well.
Yes, you're right on the mark, Leanne. The key benefit of the reuse option is that it significantly reduces the take from the stream that the golf course use during the summertime in particular. So that leaves water in the stream that gets very low, like many of the streams on the peninsula, through the dry periods in summer. So really we're providing more water than what they would normally be able to take from the stream for this irrigation. So stream health is enhanced by this whole thing. And yes, the other issues where we looked at options that did involve the A&P showgrounds and the area where the Pony Club use for storage and wetlands, did mean we would have had to shift the showgrounds off the site to a new site somewhere, and that not having to do that is a big plus in terms of the A&P Association and the Pony Club.
Sorry, and I did have one other time, that the decision-making time frame, I would be worried if it went into September because of all the challenges there, and we're changing the structure with a report that's coming to council tomorrow, which will give two council meetings in August, so we won't be using committees of the whole after July. So I think it would be really important to signal that has to be a decision made, within the time frame before major decisions are made. And, that's my encouragement, is to make sure that timetable is able to be addressed within the timescale. I would be really unhappy for it to go, a month before the election.
That's well understood.
Thanks, Leanne. I've just had a message that your hand is up, Phil. Is it?
Yep. Is it?
No.
Yeah, you're there.
It's
You're
not
there,
up on
Pauline?
my screen. Yes.
I'm in the chamber. That's why you can't see me. Sorry. Very well. Maybe you can.
Yeah.
Mike, a question. We've got to put the consent for discharging into the harbour in Duvauchelle runs out in early 23. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we put in this proposal and we asked for a resource consent extension for how long for putting waste out into the harbour, please?
Probably 4 to 5 years is what we will ask for by the time we consent this new system and build it.
Yeah, and is that
we won't get a consent for longer than 5, I don't think.
Okay? And we're already in that period of time for the Akaroa one at the moment, aren't we?
Yes.
And also, just one other question: we spend about, from what I'm led to believe, about $90,000 a year trucking water from Akaroa to Duvauchelle because they haven't got enough drinking water there at the moment.
It's not a case of quantity, it's a case of being able to treat it during high turbidity times in the stream. And yes, we have been trucking water from Akaroa to Duvauchelle.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Tim?
Thank you, Pauline. Mike, just to double check and that I'm got this correct, the proposals that you're recommending to go out are in line with the letter from Rick Tainui with regards to Anuku Runanga. Is that correct? Which I thought was a very good letter, so thank you very much. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Exactly in line with what Rick was saying.
Right, thank you, Pauline. I'm happy to move this if you'd like. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Tim. If there's no other questions, I think we'll move on to the second. We might as well get a seconder while we're at it. That's Mike. Right. So thank you. It's moved and seconded, Tim and Mike. And we'll move through to the second presentation. Please, Michelle, welcome.
Thank you. So we've prepared this presentation to address really item 1.3 of the Duvauchelle report, where it was highlighted that staff have been asked to investigate a proposal to dispose of both Akarua and Duvauchelle treated wastewater to an infiltration gallery at Birdling's Flat. Staff were also requested to consider whether there would be benefits to combine the Duvauchelle and Akarua water and wastewater treatment schemes. So both the Akarua and Duvauchelle projects are in the design stage, and consultation has been completed for Akarua. We are hoping to go out to consultation for Duvauchelle after this meeting, as we've just indicated. The objective of these projects is to discontinue the disposal of treated wastewater into the Akarua harbour, also in a sustainable way, and this is 100% aligned with our integrated water strategy. We would like to highlight at this point that before the project briefs were finalised for these two projects, that several possible solutions were considered, including to pump treated wastewater to beyond Little River and even up to Christchurch. But candidates with pump distances of more than 15 kilometres were just much more expensive than the local solutions. And these candidates also introduced many consenting challenges associated with mixing water between catchments and discharging into watersheds with known nutrient problems. I would like to refer you to the memo that was distributed regarding the strategic approach and specifically the EV management plan policies. Only viable solutions were therefore taken forward to the concept design stages for the projects. As noted, we were requested to revisit the adopted land irrigation option for Akarua, and I will go through the proposals in the next slide. First of all, the Akarua and Duvauchelle projects briefs are outlined in this schematic, and represents the status quo. The Akarua project will include a new wastewater treatment plant and irrigation to land up to Robinson's Bay. Duvauchelle will require an upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant with irrigation to land as outlined in the options presented to you by Mike. Note that the project briefs do not currently provide for the wastewater servicing of Takamatua towards Akarua, nor for providing water into the Robinson's Bay Valley Road. But we have considered these options as part of our net present value analysis. So the table on this slide represents a 50-year net present value analysis of the status quo or of the project briefs as they stand, where both capital and operating costs have been quantified over a 50-year life period. The shared irrigation option was also considered as part of the Duvauchelle options analysis. So I won't explain it further here, except again to highlight that this option is more costly than the status quo. And as mentioned in our report and presentation, it is not favored by the local community. The next proposal which we were asked to look at was to consider combining the Duvauchelle and the Akarua wastewater treatment plants into one facility. This would mean that raw wastewater would have to be pumped from Duvauchelle to Akarua, but in this case, we would still require for treated wastewater to be transported back to the Duvauchelle golf course, as we would need additional irrigation land. Again, this proposal comes with a higher net present value cost because really the operational cost savings for combining the two treatment plants are outweighed by the higher capital costs. We also believe that this option will result in less wastewater treatment resilience. Considering that wastewater treatment could potentially have been combined, the next proposal was to look at where the water treatment facility should be combined for Akarua and Duvauchelle. That would mean that raw water would have to be sent from Duvauchelle to Akarua, and that drinking water is then linked back. Still, again, this proposal does not provide sufficient operational cost benefits. We were then also asked to consider pumping treated wastewater to Birdlings Flat to be discharged into a gravel infiltration gallery. Because of the high lift needed over the summit, this option will pose quite a few technical challenges, including the introduction of pressure brake tanks beyond the summit. However, should a future wastewater scheme be established for Little River and or for Birdlings Flat, this could then also be discharged to the infiltration gallery. But we will still require to have individual wastewater treatment plants or a combined treatment plant. This option does not align with the EV management policies, and it also does not represent an environmental reuse of treated wastewater. It was then also stated that once a pipe has been established to Birdlings Flat, that the same trench could be used to send raw water back to Akarua. Assuming that this would be technically acceptable, this would require the development of more bores in Birdlings Flat, and once again, one would need to provide a high-pressure, high-lift pump station to get the water over the summit. The net present value calculations for the previous two options confirm that they are just much more costly, even and especially if one considers the unit net present value costs. So given the above, we are satisfied to confirm that the scope of Akarua and Duvauchelle projects as it is correct, because it presents the best total cost of ownership and meets not only the objectives of the integrated water strategy, but also aligns with the policies of the EV management plan. The status quo has also been agreed to after a very lengthy consultation process with the key stakeholders. To finish off, we would like to conclude that the issue about water security in Banks Peninsula, what we believe is one of the drivers for considering these additional proposals, will indeed be further investigated and addressed in a future Banks Peninsula servicing strategy. The initial indications, however, remain that regionalisation will not necessarily lead to increased affordability. And the principles and assumptions that we intend to take forward are that water demand management must first be rigorously pursued, also that more emphasis should be placed on rainwater storage for gardening purposes. We will then also want to pursue the non-potable reuse of treated wastewater. We will continue to investigate the desalination costs and implications. And the absolute last resort would be for us to reuse treated wastewater as a raw water source. Thank you. That is the end of my slides.
Thank you, Michelle. That's very helpful. Right, open up for questions. Andrew.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the two presentations, very informative. I've got three questions relating mainly to the second of the two presentations. When you say that you were asked to look at these additional proposals, who made that request and through what channel?
Obviously, the request had come through our management, but it was made by Councillor, one of the councillors, Councillor Major, to our project team. We had a briefing meeting with management with Councillor Major.
So it came directly from Councillor Major to the project team?
I believe it did go through management. I think Jane is on she will be able to help me on that.
Yeah, that's correct. I can confirm that, so Councillor Major talked to us and wanted to put this option on the table for the project team to consider.
All right, thank you. Second question, how much time has been spent, how much staff time has been spent on investigating these alternative proposals that you were asked to look at in that way?
I know our project manager for the Akarua wastewater treatment project, Kylie Hills, spent quite a bit of time to quantify and to cost the different options, so upwards of 3 days. I then also did spend time to put together net present value calculations, probably the same, although my time was a bit more of after our time.
So maybe about 6 days of staff time all up?
Yep.
All right, and final question, was it reasonably obvious from the outset, given the amount of work that's been done on both Akaroa and Duvauchelle to date, that none of these additional proposals was likely to be able to be consented or was likely to be able to be implemented cost effectively or would be able to meet cultural expectations? Was it reasonably obvious from the outset that that would be the case?
As I noted, several options were considered as part of the planning phases, even before the two projects were put into the long-term plan. So a lot of this work has previously been done, but I mean that is a few years ago. It was considered previously by the planning teams and the project teams. To confirm it again in terms of net present value is what we decided to do this time.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you. I guess where you're coming from, Andrew, it is unusual to take direction from one councillor when it's not an actual formal council resolution. So now apparently, Phil, you've got your hand up again. This is very difficult for me. I can't.
That's fine. Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have come in here.
And then Sam, I can see you. Go, Phil.
This is an absolutely fantastic report, and it's very clear, and it shows the figures, and I commend Kylie for doing it. But Andrew asked a question of, just remind me, was it about a week that Kylie spent doing this?
3 days, I think she said.
Okay.
Yeah, I've estimated about 3 full days. Councillor Major.
Yeah, that's cool. But in the scheme of things, what's been spent on time-wise by staff is years of work, would you say? If you bring Akaroa into it as well.
Indeed, a lot of time has been spent on planning and on before the projects even became a deliverable project, considerable time was spent on not just staff but external consultants on the planning phases.
Okay, no, that's perfect. And none of the two proposals we've got with Akaroa and or the Duvauchelle's one, they're wastewater only. They don't bring into account any water supply, do they?
No, the existing projects do not consider combining water.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil. Sam?
Oh, it was just a question for Jane if she's online.
Yeah, I'm online.
Oh, great. Well, I'm just trying to understand this. So are we now not, just based on Andrew's comments, I'm trying to understand if we now aren't taking suggestions from councillors for practical solutions.
Well, given the history of this particular project, it is a little bit unusual that we would at the last minute take on a suggestion from an elected member. So we've got a lot of professional staff in our organisation who have been working on this alongside consultants. In this case, Phil was quite clear that this was, in his view, a practical solution that, in his view, was going to be more cost effective for the community, while the officer's advice was it wasn't. I felt that it was important that the officers went through the process of analysing this option before you made a final decision on your preferences, because in Phil's view, this was an obvious and simple solution.
Thank you for doing that. I'd just be worried if we were going to hide behind the process and not look for practical solutions. So appreciate that.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I think I'd really rather not get too hung up on that. I think staff have stepped up really well to actually give us even more information on the alternative, we should call it the alternative proposal at the 11th hour, and they've done very well to do that. And I think in the greater scheme of things, it's not a huge amount of time compared to the amount of time, years and years and years of time that's gone into both of these projects, and community time as well. I can't see any other hands up. No more questions. So this has been moved, remind me, Tim and Mike, I think, and seconded. Is there any debate?
You there, Pauline?
Yes.
Yep.
Phil and then Andrew.
Yeah, no worries. The peninsula is a unique area with lots of little different wastewater treatment plants here and there, and wastewater problems and water problems going forward. But I've got nothing against what the hearings panel and the councillors did for the Akaroa one. That they just made their decision on what was put in front of them, and I commend them for that. That's really good. But we've estimated to spend 75 million on the Akaroa system going to Robinson's Bay, and we're estimating spending 14 odd million on the Duvauchelle's one going up to the golf course. But there is zero money for Little River, and that's going into Lake Forsyth, and I dare say that's going to happen one day. There's zero allowed for any of water for any of these Akaroa Duvauchelle's or Little River for that matter. And as I said before, we're spending 90,000 a year carting water from Akaroa to Duvauchelle's. On top of this, we're also throwing an upgrade into the Akaroa water system. And next thing you know, we'll be upgrading Duvauchelle's, we'll be upgrading Little River as well. So why not solve the whole problem at once and lay two pipes in the same trench? I know it's going to cost a bit more, but globally and looking at the whole picture, we'll be able to solve a whole lot of things over a period of time. I'm just saying, bring it all through to Duvauchelle's at this stage, continue to pump it out into the harbour while we've got the consent to do it, and in the meantime, design going over the hill with sewer and water coming back all the way to the Birdlings Flat, and I think it'll be a better outcome in the long run. It's not a quick fix. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Andrew.
Thank you very much indeed. Phil's absolutely right on one thing here. the peninsula does have huge challenges with drinking water and wastewater in particular, and other infrastructure. And that's because of its environment, it's because of its remoteness, and actually it's also because of underinvestment in previous times. The Banks Peninsula District Council and the councils that came together to make up that district had a small population and had a huge amount of capital expenditure required to keep these drinking water schemes and wastewater schemes up to scratch or to implement them in the first place. It's fair to say that a lot of the work that we're doing on the Akaroa wastewater scheme, that we've done with the Littleton wastewater, and that we're looking at here in Duvauchelle, is as a result of that intergenerational underinvestment by those previous councils. But a huge amount of this, both in Duvauchelle and Akaroa, has been done over many years. The thinking on both of these and some of the work on both of these schemes predate my time as an elected member. And the thinking around them has been going on for some time. I think it's great that we've got a solution that doesn't involve changing the golf course at Duvauchelle, which is a great asset for that community and the wider Banks Peninsula community and beyond. I think it's great that we've got two options in front of us that appear to largely be supported by the community. Given the recent history with the Akaroa scheme, and, you know, I'm just mindful of the huge amount of work that the hearings panel on Akaroa did in the face of significant community opposition to some of the options that were being put forward. It's great in the light of that recent history that we've now got something here which appears to be largely supported by the community. So I do thank staff for the work that they've done, but it does concern me that a request by one councillor can result in at least 6 days of additional time being spent. These were clearly not practical options. They clearly weren't going to meet cultural values, and they clearly weren't going to be cost effective. And if we all behaved in that way, we could all cause huge additional expense and a huge amount of work for the organisation. And I think, you know, the way that this has been handled, whilst I understand the reasons it's worked out that way, in some ways sets a very dangerous precedence around the use of staff time. So I'm happy with what's in front of us today, certainly very happy to support the two options going out to consultation. I look forward to hearing the community views, and I look forward to progressing this to decision making as soon as possible.
Thanks, Andrew. Does anybody else want to speak to this? If not, I will close it, and I would like to particularly recognise Mike Burke again, along with all the, oh, sorry, hang on, we have got hands up. I will wait. Leanne and then Aaron.
Sorry, I was trying to put my hand up.
Leanne, you're a Dalek, I'm sorry.
I'll come back.
We'll go to Aaron while we're waiting. Aaron?
Yeah, I do take a wee bit of exception to some of the stuff Andrew's said, because they're almost like allegations. I think it's important when you have elected members on council that have a reasonable understanding of particular subjects that they raise them and thrash out all potential options. To sit, but like, what's even the value of having elected members that don't ask questions that can go beyond the level of just reading a report? Otherwise, why even vote? Might as well just get the staff to run the entire council. So I think there is value in it, and given the entire time frame of this, it's not unreasonable to ask some of the questions that have been asked and to play the longer game. The irony is, Andrew, that you raised the underinvestment by multiple councils, and yet you're probably now going to vote on underinvesting in the bigger picture longer term. So that's a bit of a shame. But although I do like a number of the items that I see in here, is this the ultimate best solution for the area and for Akaroa going forward? And I also have concerns over the trucking of the water at the moment at $90,000 a year. Having talked to one of our former suppliers of our wells, I know that that's about 3 years worth of water. You'd have a brand new bore installed pumping fresh water in Duvauchelle. So, yeah. I'd like those questions being asked.
Thanks, Aaron. Leanne, you're back?
Yeah, does that work okay?
Yes, beautiful.
Great, thank you. Listen, I did try to put up my hand so that I could just simply acknowledge the significance of the letter that came in from Rick Tainui, from the Onuku Marae, and his acknowledgement of the extent of engagement that staff have undertaken with respect to this significant decision that we make today, which is the beginning of the formal decision-making process, which kicks off a consultation with our community. Two options are being narrowed down to, and both of those options would be supported by the local community, as is clear. I personally think that the option that makes more sense, and I actually would be happy for us to consult on the preferred option, which would see the golf course being irrigated. And the advantage of that would be the benefits to the stream. And I think when you think of Te Mana o Te Wai and the significance of that principle, then that is something that we should be thinking about all the time. What I didn't like about the report was really just I think the inadequacy of the impact on mana whenua statement, although this time it does talk about the Mahananui Iwi Management Plan and Te Waiora o Tāne Integrated Water Strategy. I just note it's correctly spelt in the paper, but wasn't in the presentation, and I think it's important that we acknowledge the significance of that. But I don't know that councillors did, and so I'm so pleased to the chair that you tabled the Mahananui Iwi Management Plan strategic overview document that came from staff by way of an update. It's so important that councillors understand that we have not just a moral obligation, but we have legal obligations in terms of the expression of kaitiakitanga and rangatiratanga, and which is why there can't be the consideration of the wider option going in at this late stage. But look, I think that as long as councillors are really clear around why Māori and why that is such an important issue for all of these kinds of decisions that we make, then I think that we're on good ground. So I really appreciate all the work that everyone's put into this, and I think that the usefulness of staff providing advice on the options that Phil Major put forward is that you wouldn't put drinking water pipes and wastewater pipes in the same hole. It's not a good idea, especially in a seismic environment. So I think that although it sounds good, it's great to be able to hear from staff about what the challenges would be. Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne. Well, I'll briefly speak and then I'll leave it to Tim to close it as the mover if you want to, Tim. But yeah, it's very much support Leanne's comments there. It's not culturally really acceptable to distribute wastewater from one runanga into another, unless, particularly if there are other options. So that's one biggie for me, and these other options do exist and they're very, very good options. And particularly when you take into account, as Michelle was saying, that the length of pipes to run it out to Kaitariti or Birdling's Flat does create a resilience issue, which we know all about that as the Mayor referred to. So for me, there's the alternative option that was raised by Phil is not really a workable one. But as I began to say before, and also the fact that, yes, we could extend the consent out, but doesn't mean that we should go longer than we have to. Let's get this done as quickly as we can, because the consent just doesn't dictate our behaviour if we can do things quicker and respect our partners. And Mike Burke, I just want to thank you again and recognise the fact that you're very well known over there now on the peninsula with all the close work you've done with the community and Onuku and iwi there, and you're very well respected. You get on very well with people and you've run this brilliantly as well. and all the staff that have been involved in this as well need recognition. It's been a hefty piece of work, very hefty. And I'd also want to refer to Helen Beaumont's comments too, that a regional option is not always better. So this is a more of a contained two projects here, which are going to work very well, and the reports are very detailed and give us good information. So I'll be supporting the recommendation to go out for consultation with A4 and B3 today. Thank you. Over to Tim.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to say thank you to staff, Mike, and your team. It's been a huge amount of work. And in the paper, it is very technical. And what I really liked was Rick Tainui and the letter that he sent on behalf of the Anuku Runanga with regards to the community, and not just one community, but the many effects on the group of communities that make up the area, and the respectfulness which it was written, and complimented our staff, but also highlighted the concerns and the positive side of the results that this would gain for the community. So thank you very much for that, and thank you again to staff, and that's it for me. Thank you, Pauline.
Thanks, Tim. So on that note, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please wave at me. Thank you. And opposed? That's Aaron, Sam, Phil.
Can we take a division on that, please?
You want division?
Please.
Is that you, Megan?
The Mayor.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Turner.
Aye.
Councillor Chen.
Aye.
Councillor Chu.
Aye.
Councillor Coker.
Yes.
Councillor Cotter.
Aye.
Councillor Donovan.
Aye.
Councillor Davidson.
Aye.
Councillor Galloway. She's not here. Councillor Goff.
No.
Councillor Johansson.
Aye.
Councillor Keown.
No.
Councillor McDonald.
No.
Councillor Major.
No.
Councillor McClellan.
Yes.
Councillor Scandrick.
Aye.
And Councillor Templeton.
Aye.
That's 12 ayes and 4 noes.
Thank you. That's carried. Right, we'll move on to item